Jun-woo wakes up in his bed. He logs in the game to play with his friends. But his friends all say that something terrible happened. Jun-woo feels puzzled. Is there anything more important than playing games? He slowly walks to the balcony and looks out the window in surprise. He sees everyone hurriedly driving. The sound of an explosion frightens him directly. The helicopters circle low overhead. Last second, the mother reunites with her daughter. In the next second, the daughter bits her mother crazily. All of the residents of the whole building flee in disorder. More than half of people become violent and combative. The whole community sink into chaos. Seeing that scene, Jun-woo is stunned. He has never seen such a big scene before. Are they acting or rehearsing? Suddenly, he hears someone knocking hard on the door. Jun-woo carefully walks to the door and looks out through the peephole. There's no one. He tremblingly opens the door. He wants to see what happens. A man barges in. That makes Jun-woo feel scared. That man tells him he is his neighbor. He just wants to use his toilet. But seeing his worried look, Jun-woo feels so scared. But he still agrees with that man at this time. Jun-woo turns around and watches the TV. The news reports that a mysterious disease spreads quickly. Those infected whole bodies are feverish and their eyeballs are full of blood. That makes Jun-woo scared. He hurriedly opens the drawer and takes out a kitchen knife. That man just goes out and stands behind him. Jun-woo quickly forces to drive that man away. That man suddenly trembles. Jun-woo forces himself to push that man back out and lock the door. After he confirms that he is temporarily safe, he then receives messages from his parents telling him they are safe. They also tell him not to go out and wait for the rescue team. He learns that his parents still live. He is full of hope. He quickly takes out all the food at home. He carefully calculates how long he can live with this food. On the next day, he gets up and plays the games as usual. After playing games for a long time, the internet is suddenly disconnected. He takes out his phone and finds that the internet is getting worse and worse. He has lost contact with the outside world now. He can't play the game. What should he do? Then he plays with drones. He sees through the drone that the whole community is full of infected people. There is not even a normal person. Don't mention the rescue team. In an instant, he loses hope of living. At night, he hears the sound of gunshots. He walks to the window. He sees a policewoman fleeing from her companions in horror. He sees the policewoman is dragged to the ground by the infected. The policewoman asks him for help. Jun-woo shouts out loud. That attracts the infected's attention. In the end, he still watches the policewoman being dragged into the infected. At this time, he also exposes his location. There's someone who knocks hard on his door. Jun-woo takes the club and goes to the door. He sees an infected man knocks the door open. Jun-woo blocks the fridge with his body. But he still left a crack for that man. When he feels that he can't hold on anymore, he wants to jump off the window. As a result, when he runs to the guardrail, he doesn't dare to jump off. He can only climb out of the guardrail cautiously. At this time, that man has already broken through the line of defense. He rushes to the window, but because he uses too much force, he falls off the window. Jun-woo is so shocked and luckily escapes. He turns around and looks at that policewoman. She has already been infected. He has despaired of life. He decides to commit suicide. He puts a rope around his neck. It turns out that he has been waiting for the arrival of the rescue team these days. But now he can't wait anymore. He runs out of water, food, and internet. Therefore, he decides to commit suicide. Suddenly, he has new hope. He sees a laser pointer's light moving around his apartment. Then it stops at the word on the wall. Stupid, it means that there's still a survivor. Jun-woo attempts to rescue himself. Then he falls to the ground. He luckily survives. He immediately sees the apartment building opposite. It turns out to be a beautiful girl. Yoo-bin uses a telescope to look at Jun-woo. Jun-woo is so excited that there's another survivor. He once doubts whether it is illusion or fact. Yoo-bin makes a gesture to tell him that, see you on the balcony tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Jun-woo falls asleep with hope. But he sleeps soundly. He doesn't wake up until 11 a.m. Luckily, Yoo-bin always looks at his apartment. They finally see each other. On the following day, they continue maintaining this way of communication. Jun-woo has no food. To share the food with Jun-woo, Yoo-bin tries to set up a zipline. At this time, Jun-woo remembers that he has a drone. After setting up a zipline, Yoo-bin shares her food with Jun-woo. In the next few days, he keeps eating the food Yoo-bin gives him. But he can't keep eating her food. At night, he takes the equipment and goes out. He hasn't done this before. Then he runs to the corridor to take the neighbor's key. Then he opens the door and comes to his house. Looking at the photos, he knows that his neighbor likes mountain climbing. Then he finds that there's still a motionless infected person on the bed. Jun-woo quickly comes to the kitchen and opens the fridge. He takes away some usable food. He runs to the room and takes away the jacket and the walkie-talkie. Is it too smooth? Even if the infected wants to let you off, the director doesn't let you off for sure. Just as expect, an infected person rushes towards Jun-woo. Fortunately, Jun-woo is so smart. He directly hugs that female zombie on the bed to cover in front of his chest. Then he runs back home. After having food, Jun-woo wants to share it with Yoo Bin. He delivers the walkie-talkie and food to Yoo Bin. He hears her voice on the walkie-talkie. That makes him feel kind. But within a few days, the two run out of food. Yoo Bin thinks that it's not a good idea to keep waiting for the rescue team like this. So she plans to escape. She watches with a telescope that there are no infected people on the 8th floor of Jun-woo. So the two agree to run to the 8th floor. Yoo Bin slides down with a rope. She takes a small hatchet to fight with the infected in the community. But there are too many infected people. As a result, she is dragged to the ground by a group of infected people. When she is about attacked by the infected, Jun-woo comes over and rescues her. He picks up the gun that the policewoman had dropped before. They try to run quickly. They run into the building and close the door. After entering the elevator, they go up to the 8th floor smoothly. At this time, a group of infected people suddenly appear on the seemingly peaceful 8th floor. They are besieged again, but the infected are more and more. All of the doors on the 8th floor can't be opened. Do they really die here? Suddenly, 2 smoke bombs fly from behind. It turns out that a middle-aged uncle saves them. After entering the room, Yoo Bin still guards against that uncle. Because she has looked at this room with a telescope before and there is no one. At this time, the uncle takes out food and water. But in this situation, regarding the food and water of the uncle, they are still on the alert. They dare not eat them rashly. The uncle also sees their worries. He drinks the water on the bottle. This makes them relax their vigilance. The two start eating. They also begin to talk. The uncle also tells them the good news. The government has launched a rescue operation. The rescue team will be here soon. This ignites their new hope. But just when they are happy to celebrate, Jun-woo begins to fall asleep slowly. Yoo Bin sees the uncle light a cigarette confidently. She realizes that they have already fallen into a trap. She sees the photo at the door and finds that this is not the uncle's house. She quickly becomes weak. He drags Yoo Bin into the room. Just when we think that the uncle is going to do something with Yoo Bin, but he doesn't do anything. He just goes out of the room and closes the door. At this time, an infected woman appears. It turns out to be that uncle's wife. Yoo Bin is put into the room to feed his wife. The food of the infected is human. The uncle can't bear to watch his infected wife starve to death. So he puts Yoo Bin into the room. Yoo Bin struggles to live. At this time, Jun-woo suddenly awakes. I want to ask the uncle, are you fooled by the drugstore? Jun-woo takes out the gun and aims at the uncle. Unexpectedly, his wife is not Yoo Bin's opponent. When the uncle opens the door to check on his wife falls into him. He doesn't resist anymore. The man surrenders to his wife's attack. Yoo Bin immediately shoots the two. The gunshots attract the infected. They swarm into the building. The two know that they can't stay here anymore. But if they go out, they will also die. Even if they die, they can't die in the hands of the infected. When the two want to commit suicide, they suddenly hear the sound of the helicopter. Helicopters pass outside. It arrives just right. The two decide to fight again. They make a cart. They kill all of the infected that block their road. They finally come to the rooftop, but the helicopter has already left. They see the infected are more and more. The two use up all of the bullets they have. At this time, they can't think anything. They only have to choose how to die. Then they suddenly hear the sound of the helicopter. It arrives on time. The army helicopter shoots at the horde before carrying the pair to safety. It is the end of the movie. If you like this movie, you can watch it. I'm Harry. Thanks for following me. See you again.